Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
There's only one move in that position, and
no,
absolutely insane.
This was the most unbelievable endgame yet.
Have you ever seen a mic drop in chess? This was one of them.
It really does not get any better than this. Magnus Carlsen with white kicking off here with a Roy Lopez bishop b5 against Hikaru Nakamura with black. It's the Speed Chess Championship Final 2023. I love these games and this is an instant classic. Clock times are on the left. It's the blitz portion, 3 minutes per player plus 1 second a move increment which they get given back. So Hikaru goes for knight f6, battening down the hatches, Berlin defense, rock solid. Now we see castles. Magnus steers us down the line here where the queens come off the board. We're not going to linger on these moves. Very theoretical, cutting edge stuff. First employed by Kramnik at a serious level against Kasparov. A drawing weapon. What's Magnus got planned? Well, h3, king c8. Why would black ruin the castling rights of the king? Well, black is solid, practice shows. You've got the bishops in the long term. What's Magnus got planned? Well, he prepares to fianchetto his rook in the corner. Just kidding, the bishop's headed that way. So h6 from Hikaru, bishop b2, b6, is Hikaru going to fianchetto the rook? No, of course not. It's a nice cubby hole for the king. We get knight e2, opens the eyes of this sniper, long-ranged bishop, and the knight's headed for f4. a5, if in doubt, chuck a rook's pawn, gain some space. Hikaru looking for a4. Magnus lands knight f4, looming over the ramparts, looking at the sensitive light squares. a4 played and e6. Really thematic pawn sacrifice. Now you can take either way. Hikaru goes for this one. We get some shattering of the pawn structure. Why would Magnus sacrifice a pawn? Well, here comes his cannon blasting down the board, aka the rook. I believe the term rook comes from old Persian, you know, is it meaning chariot or something? But I like cannon, really blasting down, looks like a cannon. How are you defending the pawn here? Well, you're not. If you try king d7, you're running into knight e5, and then there could be some fork action if the king runs to these squares. So rook g8 played, sorry, the cat's in the way. Move out the way, please. So rook g8 prepares g5 here, but moves this rook off the long diagonal so you don't drop a piece. Now Magnus recaptures his pawn. Please bear with me while I let the cat out. Okay, she's out. Huge chess fan. She just won the under-8s chess championship in the UK. Been listening to Epic Chess, so do subscribe if you want to do similar. We now see g5 from Hikaru, but it's a moment of blind madness from both players because bishop d6 was best to defend this pawn. After this one's played, Magnus also doesn't take the pawn, but he could have done so. You know, the rook escapes to c4, it doesn't get trapped or anything here. It's a clean pawn, but g4 is played. Drives back the knight to d6, suddenly the pawn no longer on prees. But Magnus still in the driving seat. Both players tuck the kings to safety. Always good practice. And now this is lovely. Magnus picks up the right piece and moves it into the heart of the board. Because if you start playing with the knight, you know, knight e5, let's say, well, the bishop hits a nice long diagonal. a3 could come, forcing the bishop here or here, where it runs into knight b5 or c5. Very astute from Magnus, both players on top of each other's plans. And now Hikaru takes. Always capture towards the center is the general rule of thumb. If takes, Bishop recaptures, but again instructive. Why take this rook off when actually it hasn't got invasion squares? So Hikaru goes here with the rook, swapping off this active piece, a real pain in the derriere. So Hikaru gets rid, knight recaptures, and now Magnus could start with knight d4, good move, eyeing these squares, but instead he goes rook e1, also a good move. Also instructive that not going rook d1 because the d file is going to get blocked up really. And now Hikaru takes the moment to play c5. Stop knight d4. The computer wants to retreat this bishop. Open the eyes of the rook here. But Magnus plays a much trickier move with pawn h4. And the endgame now is the most fascinating part of the entire game. Commentator reactions to come. So g takes on h4 played. Hang on a minute, are you not hanging a pawn with check? A second pawn? Well, this is Magnus's point. He holds on and prepares to recoup this one. Then he's going f4, pass pawn, push 'em baby. So takes wasn't best. Hikaru would have been better advised to develop a minor piece, leave that pawn structure. But okay, we rattle on. Knight d6 played. Magnus up on the clock here. We see knight takes on h4. The f pawn is released. How's Hikaru defending this one? Well, this is utterly fantastic. He goes pawn h5 here, giving Magnus this pawn. Magnus takes, best move. What is the point of that? Now white's got two passers. Well, rook g5 pressures, and if you push, of course, bishop captures. Really nice idea. So how does Magnus respond? Well, with the top move, knight g6, chess worthy of the gods here from both players. No time to capture, or king g4, you're attacking two pieces at once, and black can't hold everything together. So the pawn not touched. Bishop h6 is Hikaru's point. He's still threatening to take here, and now Magnus, a bit tilted, does not find the right move. For context, he's down 2 games in the match at this point. Hikaru's on a bit of a streak. So what should Magnus do? Well, knight f4. It retreats and covers this pawn. But no doubt the reason he didn't do this is you have to assess this and this and this. Black gets 2 minors for the rook, usually good, but not in this particular situation. The problem is this passed pawn is running, think say rook e6 and push the pawn, and ultimately with the active king, a second passer, black is going to have to give up a minor piece here. Normally Magnus assesses this so well, but not today. Instead, he goes bishop f4, allowing takes with check, king g4, but rook f5. What fantastic play from Hikaru. He's literally giving an entire piece, but in this situation, rook takes on f2, black's getting loads of pawns and should be okay here. Pawn attacked. What if you defend it with c4? Well, you can check, force the king to stay with this knight, then come after this pawn and say you play the very natural rook e3. Well, how about this for tactics? Obviously pause if you want to have a look, find the best move, but the way to go here in this position is rook h2 check. King sidesteps, you take here and then you land this one, so white wouldn't actually take there, that's a bad move, but this is just one sample line. Black is better. So tricky dicky stuff from Hikaru. Magnus therefore does not take this bishop. He takes the knight on d6, not pawn recaptures. I forgot about the Zwischenzug. That's why these moves are so tricky, the in-between moves. So did Magnus mess it up. Now the king sidesteps, and now the pawn is taken. Hikaru has leveled up the match. Magnus shaking his head. So we get rook e6 played, attacking the pawn, defending the knight. Rook g2, Hikaru activates. We get a liquidation. There were different ways to go. You could have gone f4 there, or c4, but we'll stick with the game. Now c4 played, explosive move, dynamite c4, rook b2, goes after the b3 pawn, and now knight e7. Magnus attacking the bishop, it comes to f4, hits the rook, and check. He wants to attack. Look at the barrier formed by the rook and knight. You shall not pass. The Balrog miserably retreats. Is the bridge of Khazad-dûm going to cave in? Knight c6 threatens a checkmate, the Arabian mate. So this bishop slides back, nobly defends the king, covers the square, but wait. Rook d8. This is about to drop. Pin and win. So what does Hikaru do? King b7. Now if you take with the rook, king takes knight. So Magnus takes with the knight, but watch this. Rook takes pawn. Things are not so simple. You can't retreat with the knight to a6 or c6 without getting taken. And if knight d7, king c7 hits two pieces. Now this can lead to a draw like this, hitting the rook. Pawn takes. Now you get a line like this, should be a draw, but Magnus wants more. He doesn't want a draw here. He's got the minor piece, so he starts bringing the king in. We get rook c3, rook h8 from Magnus, king c7 played, rook f5, sorry, king f5. Now this second pawn drops and things are getting crazy. King e6 played by Magnus. Rook d4 to cut that king off. So king e5. The rook slides down. The pawns are about to start running. Magnus now checks that king. King b7, and he just has to take this pawn here. Liquidate. Go into this kind of position where you cut the king. Yes, the pawn can run, but then you attack it when the king's far enough away. This is a sample line. You round it up. But Magnus doesn't want to give the piece. He goes knight b8, c4, and this is where we pick it up with the commentary team. They are freaking.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
There's only one move in that position, and nobody could
wins.
produce it.
No.
Absolutely insane. I can't believe it.
Magnus is like, how did this just happen? This was the most unbelievable endgame yet.
Have you ever seen a mic drop in chess? This was one of them.
What more to say? This was the final position. Once the pawns got rumbling, nothing Magnus could do. What a mic drop of an endgame by Hikaru Nakamura. And if you enjoyed this one and want to see another incredible game from the same match, check out the video on screen, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.